overall, remember, being on time is important. But more importantly, being earlier than on time, ahead of time, is a huge necessity. You have to, especially in this day and age, gotta be not just on time, but earlier than on time, ahead of time. You have to do that because you can be in a space of mind, a clear space of mind, to be able to do the things that you want to do and achieve. And in order to do that, you gotta wake up earlier, you gotta get up earlier, show up earlier, because you're showing up for yourself. Believe in yourself to know that you can do the things that you want to do, you need to do, when you can do it, and when you want to do it. But you gotta prepare. Part of being prepared is being early, then on time, and well in advance, way over time. Hey, BET Training here. Listen, I'm actually driving a coach bus, doing a charter trip, picking up a school group and then taking them to an event, and then stand by and wait for them to finish and then drop them back off. But today's topic that we're going to talk about, and it's a crucial topic, especially when it comes to in the CDL industry and even in life in general. But the main topic is be on time. Better than that, be earlier than on time, ahead of time. Because reality is, even if you show up on time, which is the bare minimum, other outside circumstances, life can happen to whereas you being on time turn out to be late or too late. So really being early before being on time and ahead of time. Because when it comes to operating the vehicle, when it comes to doing the task at hand, other unforeseen things will happen. So for example, traffic can really delay the time that you're supposed to be at a certain location or be at a certain pickup or drop off, whatever that case is. So ultimately, planning ahead, preparation is key, or one of the main keys to being on time and earlier than on time. Now, part of that is what you do the night before to get ready. Of course, the trip planning, knowing where you're going, what route specifically you're going to take to get there, how long it would take, and then being early enough to adjust the time to being early, so that way, just in case if it is traffic or if it's going to take a little bit longer, you still have that window time to be able to actually be there on time at the worst case scenario. Now, of course, there are exceptions to the rule. If there was an accident or closure that was unforeseen and was in that moment, then of course those things happen. But most likely you could plan ahead and be early to be able to discern and decide what type of route should I go, what time do I need to be at the bus lot or the terminal, whatever the case is, to be able to safely, comfortably do a pre-trip inspection, have your paperwork ready, and then set everything up, and then be able to drive on the road. So that is one of the crucial main things, because I've seen drivers just rush or just scrambling, trying to get all of their things and trying to do a quick run and skip steps. And when it comes to doing a pre-trip especially, you do not want to skip steps. You have to make sure the vehicle is safe enough to operate and to drive the vehicle itself. You have to, because other people's lives are at stake. You have families, you have friends, you have people, pedestrians, motorists on the road, and it's your responsibility to make sure this vehicle is safe to protect you and others on the road and their families. So driving the vehicle, making sure the vehicle is safe, and being mindful of being early than on time, ahead of time. Because that really can set the tone of your day, it can set the tone of the trip, work, and your overall day in general. For example, let's just say you get up in the morning and a person's run behind. They're running late. If you're running late, one of the things to do is to at least communicate with the dispatch or the supervisor or the person that is facilitating the operations of that job, and let them know that you are running behind. Obviously, it should be no excuse. If it is excuse, you explain it clear, but then let them know your ETA. So they'll say, all right, what's your ETA? So ETA stands for estimated time arrival. They need to know that because you need to communicate with the point of contact. So POC stands for point of contact. So they need to contact the point of contact and communicate to make sure and let you know, all right, our driver was running a few minutes behind, but they are on their way due to traffic, but they're on their way, because the client or the customer that they are, the client and customer are using the service. They are using the vehicle, wherever it's the bus, the truck, vehicle, whatever the case is, for the trip. And since they are paying for that service, they need to know where the vehicle is so they can utilize the service. And that communication is key as well. So that's one of the main things too, preparing yourself and being early than on time. Now, ideally, that's why the pre-trip is important, and the planning, pre-trip and the trip planning is important, because depending on where you are going, where you are picking them up, where you're taking them to, and where you're dropping them back off, that will determine how much earlier you need to wake up, and it also determines how far you live to the terminal that you're going to. So for example, if you live 15, 20 minutes away from the terminal, ideally you want to get up approximately 30 minutes to an hour before, sometimes an hour and a half, because you never know. You want to get yourself ready. You don't know any unforeseen things that may or may not happen. So ideally, you will want to do that. But overall, if you really want to go in depth of how to maximize your time and being earlier than on time, then you have to reverse engineer. You have to take steps going backwards, retracing the steps. So, for example, a perfect example, let's just say the pickup time to pick up the passengers is 9:30, right? Pick up the passengers at 9:30. That's clear. So if you have to pick up the passengers at 9:30, what do you have to do in order to successfully pick up the passengers safely at 9:30? Well, the professional way, the smart way, the safe way, professional way is, if the paperwork, if it says 9:30, then you want to be there to pick up the passengers 15 minutes before the time says for you to pick them up. So for example, 9:30 is the pickup time to pick up the passengers. So that means by 9:15, you should already be at the pickup location to be ready to pick up the passengers. That's a common standard. That's a smart and professional way to do it. So in order to be there to pick the passengers up at 9:15 to stage, right, to wait for the passengers, then that means you have to retrace your steps and do the planning of how long it's going to take for you to get to the passenger's pickup location at 9:15 in the morning. So in order to do that, you have to retrace your steps. How long would it take for you to drive from the terminal to the pickup location? Depending on where the terminal is and depending on where the pickup location is, you have to take that into account. So let's just say, hypothetically, you map it out, and let's just say, not including traffic, let's just say this is the amount of time it'll take without traffic. Let's just say it's 30 minutes. So let's just say at 8:45, if you leave the terminal at 8:45 to picking up the passengers and being there at 9:15 in the morning, that is 30 minutes without traffic. So then you got to retrace your steps as well, because you can't just base on or assume that the time, that 30 minutes, you'll get there exactly 30 minutes, because anything can happen. Traffic, delays, lane closures, etc. So knowing that, let's just say it's 30 minutes. So instead of leaving at 8:45, you might want to leave at between 8:15, no later than 8:30. Now the earlier the better. You might want to leave at 8 o'clock. Leave the terminal at 8 a.m. So then it'll give you that good hour, 15-minute cushion. So that way, if you are, quote unquote, if it took you 45 minutes and you left at 8 a.m., you still have plenty of time to stage there. But let's just say, instead of leaving at 8:45, let's just say you, at the latest, you left at 8:30 in the morning. 8:30 takes you 30 minutes to get to the pickup location. That extra 15-minute window is for the traffic, for the delays, for any unforeseen things that will happen. Now, ideally, the earlier that time, the more of a safety cushion you'll have to be able to pick up the passengers on time. But let's just say at 8:30, you left the terminal at 8:30. It'll take you 30 minutes to get there, so you'll be there at 9. You're staging by 9:15, but you have to pick up the passengers no later than 9:30 in the morning. So that gives you that hour and a half window. Let's just say you got there at 9. That good 30-minute window. So is a huge thing to keep in mind and to really think about, and that's the really structured way to plan it. Now, that's just leaving the terminal or leaving the bus lot or the location where you are picking up the bus. You still got to keep in mind of the time that it will take for you to safely perform the pre-trip inspection. Depending on the type of vehicle, it may take longer than others. So for example, I'm driving a coach bus. It's going to take a little bit longer because it's a larger vehicle. It has extra parts versus driving a shuttle bus or a minibus. A minibus, the pre-trip process, overall process is the same, but the parts, the functions, what to expect is different. Because for example, some mini shuttle buses have wheelchair lifts, ADA wheelchair lifts. That takes a little bit more time to inspect versus a minibus that does not have a wheelchair lift. Same thing with the coach bus. A coach bus that has a ADA wheelchair lift is going to take a little bit longer than a coach bus that does not have an ADA wheelchair lift. So really keeping that in mind and knowing how much or how long it will take for you to complete the pre-trip inspection. So let's just say with that example I mentioned before, 8:30 you have to leave from the terminal to pick up the passengers. So that means the question is, what time do you need to be at the terminal or the lot, the bus lot, where you're picking up the bus? What time do you need to arrive there? Now, again, it does depend on the type of vehicle you're driving, but let's just say a rough estimate, it takes you 30 minutes to safely, efficiently, effectively operate the commercial motor vehicle. Let's just say it takes 30 minutes. That 30 minutes, so from 8 o'clock to 8:30, that's the 30 minutes from doing the pre-trip inspection, make sure everything is safe for you to be able to drive and be on the road to pick up the passengers. Then that means instead of being at the terminal at 8 o'clock, you also want to give that 15-minute grace period as well. So meaning instead of being at the terminal by 8, because then that means you would be rushing, you want to be at the terminal or be at the job where you're picking up the bus or vehicle. You want to be there at 7:45 a.m. Now that 7:45, 8 a.m. window, that 15-minute grace period is crucial. That gives you that time just in case there were traffic delays, if it wasn't lane closure. So that 15-minute grace period. So you think in your mind, okay, instead of me being at the terminal at 8 a.m., I got to be there at 7:45. That way it's training your mind to be there earlier than on time. That way it's training your mind to be there earlier than on time. And you're planning it ahead of schedule. So you're planning it ahead of time in advance. So when you're doing this, if you got to be at the terminal instead of 8 a.m., you want to be there at 7:45 a.m., then you got to retrace your steps and reverse engineer. Retrace your steps and reverse engineer on what time do you need to be at the terminal. In order to do that, you got to retrace your steps. What time do you have to leave the house? Or what time do you have to get ready? And so all of that, depending on how long it takes for you to even get ready, how long does it take to get from where you live at to where the terminal is. Now, depending on where you're at, the terminal might be 10 to 15 minutes. It may take over an hour. And then you got to take traffic into consideration. On average, it may take 30 minutes to get there without traffic. So it really depends on how you do it. But the key formula to really know what time and how you can get there earlier than on time is using that extra 15-minute grace period or so, maybe longer depending on how far you are driving. But then also that period of, you got to map out how long it's going to take you to get from where you live at to where the bus lot or the terminal is, or the yard. How long it's going to take. If it's going to take you 15 minutes to get there, add that 15-minute grace period. Now, depending on the time you arrive there too, it makes a difference. If you're at nighttime, ideally, still use a 15-minute grace period in terms of getting there 15 minutes earlier. But generally speaking, there's no traffic at night unless there's construction or an unforeseen accident took place. But when you're planning this out, keep in mind of traffic. If it's traffic, instead of being there 15 minutes early or leaving where you live at 15 minutes earlier, you might need to leave 30 minutes earlier, maybe 45 minutes earlier, depending on where you're at. Because at a certain point, depending on where you are at and where the bus lot is located, it may take you longer when it comes to traffic. Or at a certain point, there will be traffic if you leave the home or you leave where you live at a certain time. So depending on if you live in the city versus you living outside in the suburbs or in the urban area, it really does play a role, and it does take into account of all of that. So really keep in mind when you're planning the overall process of being not just on time, but earlier than on time, ahead of time. So let's just say you live 30 minutes away. 30 minutes away from the terminal, as an example. And you want to, again, leave in 15 minutes earlier. So if it takes you 30 minutes and you want to be at the terminal at 7:45 in the morning, 30 minutes from that is 7:15. So that means add a 15-minute grace period before. So you leave the house by 7. Then that means it will take you plenty of time to do that. And that give you that window of grace period. Obviously, if the more familiar you are with the road, the area, you can adjust it to be there a little bit later. But a little bit later just means that you'll still be there early because you're putting 15-minute increments before. So that way, if something happens or traffic delays or time evolves or time changes, you still know that you're going to be there earlier before the on-time mark. Now, what companies will do, depending on the type of company, they'll have the schedule set out in such a way that your pickup time to pick up the passengers is actually the staging time to be there for the passengers to come and pick up. Sometimes they'll have it that way. Some companies may tell you that, some companies won't. But that's a safety measure that companies will do because they want to make sure that the driver, the professional operator, the driver specifically, gets there on time. So they would do those things depending on the culture and the environment of the job, because some jobs, sometimes it's a pattern of drivers maybe not getting there on time, so they have to push the time a little bit earlier and let the driver know that this is the time to pick up the passengers or to be at the pickup location. So then that way they'll be there even if they're running behind. And the company will let the passengers or the client know the time that the driver will be there, or it's already set where the client will let the company know what time they will need the vehicle, and that will be the pickup time. And companies will adjust it to make sure, even if the driver is running about 10 to 15 minutes late, wherever the case is, that the driver would be there by the time that the client requested the company for the driver to be there. Meaning, it's set up in such a way, at least with some companies, where even if the driver is running behind, the pickup time is set up to where it's earlier than the actual pickup time that the client would want or need. But not being dependent on that, because some companies have that in place because they know how the culture of the drivers are, not being there on time or running behind a little bit. And some companies do it just as a common practice. And I believe it should be a common practice as well. And depending on the culture and the nature of the environment, of the workplace environment, the jobs, the drivers, the people, the supervisors, the managers, the fleet manager, operations, all of that will determine whether if it's necessary to add those increments, because you can gauge whether or not, all right, if you have good, loyal, trusted drivers, you can just give them the exact time to be there, and the professional drivers and the professional operators will handle that and do it. But you have others where you have, of course, beginner drivers, intermediate drivers, seasoned drivers, and then professional drivers. Depending on their skill level, their personalities, their work ethic, their core values, their purpose in life, will get there either earlier, on time, or late. It's a saying that it says to be early is to be on time, to be on time is to be late, and to be late is to never show up at all. So really it's important to be earlier than on time, ahead of time. So being earlier than on time, well in advance. Now, again, back to the example. Let's just say you leave the house. It takes you 30 minutes to get from where you live at to the terminal. That's 30 minutes. So that's from 7:15 to 7:45. But you want to have that 15-minute increment and leave at 7 a.m. So that way you have a total of 2.5 hours, right? 2.5 hours in that example to leave where you live at, go to the job, have that time to pace yourself to really do a thorough pre-trip inspection, make sure you have all your documents, make sure you know exactly everything that you need, have everything set up, and then to be able to safely drive to the pickup location way before 9:30. And each step that you retrace or reverse engineer those steps, the key is you're adding those 15-minute increments, that 15-minute spaced increment. So if you have to be at a certain time at this point, just be there 15 minutes earlier at each point that you are getting to. So for example, that example at 9:30, instead of being at the pickup location at 9:30, be there at 9:15. And if it takes you 30 minutes to get from the terminal to the pickup location, that's 30 minutes. So you trace that back. 9:15 to 8:45, that's 30 minutes. Add additional 15 minutes before that, those extra 15-minute intervals. So then instead of leaving the terminal at 8:45, you're gonna leave the terminal at 8:30. Then, if it takes you 30 minutes to do the pre-trip, instead of being at the terminal from where you live at, instead of being at the job at 8 o'clock, add that 15-minute interval before that. That means be at the job to pick up the vehicle at 7:45. And then it takes you 30 minutes to get from where you live at to the terminal. If it takes you 30 minutes, that'll be from 7:15 to 7:45. That's that 30-minute interval. But instead of leaving your house or where you live at, instead of leaving there at 7:15, add that 15 minutes before that. So that means you'll leave the house at 7 a.m. Now, how long it would take for you to get ready, get prepared, whether you take a shower early in the morning to freshen up, or you take the shower the night before, so that way when you get up, you can get ready, and it'll take you less time to get ready to leave the house, depending on how you do that, and how long it takes for you to get ready, depending on your style, your habits, on how your routine of how you wake up, what you do in the morning. Generally speaking, let's just say, typical day, let's just say you take a shower the night before. That means it takes you 15, 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes to take a shower. That means you have the time to get up early. However you map that out, in that example, let's just say you have to leave at 7 in the morning. Depending on if you are driving a vehicle, your own vehicle, someone else's vehicle, or if you are taking transportation, and or if you're walking, that's going to play a role in it too. So that's part of that process. Now, it may seem like it's a lot, but honestly, in the beginning, it may seem like it, but it's something that you would do anyway, subconsciously. Like, okay, you get up in the morning, you gotta take a shower, okay, brush your teeth, make it to bed, you gotta make some breakfast, or grab snacks, you gotta, put your clothes on, you need to make up, or you need to shave. Like, all those things play in a role, and it does take an effect on whether or not you're gonna leave from where you live at earlier, and early enough to be able to safely be earlier than on time. Because on time is just the bare minimum. That's what the client requests. But if you go over and beyond, what will tend to happen is people will be more attracted to you. People will be able to trust you more. You're building that credibility. You're building that trust. People will be able to, oh, you know what? I can count on this person. Or I can count on him. Or I can count on her. Because you're going over and beyond the expectations, right? And beyond of what is just needed for the basic job. That stands out. So it may take you to leave the house at 7 a.m. You might have to get up. Generally speaking, a rough estimate formula is if you get up between 45 minutes and an hour and a half before you leave the house. So, meaning 45 minutes from that, and depending on how close the terminal is, for example, you can adjust those times accordingly. Instead of 30 minutes or so to get there, it might take you 15 minutes. If you're going to take you 15 minutes to get to the job from where you live at, then you can adjust it accordingly. But that key rule is add the additional 15 minutes per each interval time that it will take for you to get to one point to another. So if you're leaving your house at 7 a.m. or you're leaving your house from the house, be there. If it takes you 30 minutes to do the pre-trip, and for you to get ready to get the vehicle, do the pre-trip inspection, and to be able to be ready to drive the vehicle, then you might need to add that extra 15 minutes early. Then to drive and to be at the pickup location, you want to leave 15 minutes earlier. So that really takes an effect. Now, when you wake up in the morning, ideally between 45 minutes to an hour and a half is a good time to get up, get ready, be prepared. You might need to set an alarm or notification, let you know what time you need to get up. Or if you are at a point where you know routines at this time, you can. But it's good to have those safety measures just in case. But when you are overall driving and operating the vehicle, you just have to keep in mind of those things. So, and when you're on time or earlier than on time, you are more in a space where you can be able to focus, drive on the road. You can be able to really be mindful of those key things. Let's just say 7 a.m., that 45 minutes, let's say you get up at 6:15 or you get up at 6 o'clock. Or even if you get up at 5:45 in the morning, maybe that's something that, you get some things done earlier, so you need to get up that early in the morning to prepare yourself. But all of that really plays a huge role to being on time and earlier than on time. Because think about it, if you was running late, running behind, that carries extra stress, that carries extra unnecessary stress. It could be frustration to the client. It could be overall, it could request their money back because, oh, the driver was late, right? And then all that tension and pressure and stress, you know, a person got in an accident because they were late, you know, rushing, that also plays a huge role in it as well. So really, that's why it's important to be on time, and better than that, earlier than on time, because in order to be a professional, you really have to plan this out. Be there not just on time, but earlier than on time and ahead of time. Otherwise, you're not going to have the type of experience and the opportunities that will be made available, because people want to be around people that is independent. People want to be around people where they know that they can count on them, they can rely on them if needed, and when they need help, that they'll be there to do it, and they're going to do what they say that they were going to do. All that plays a huge role in being on time, but being earlier than on time, ahead of time. Overall, remember, being on time is important, but more importantly, being earlier than on time, ahead of time, is a necessity. You have to, especially in this day and age, gotta be not just on time, but earlier than on time, ahead of time. You have to do that because you can be in a space of mind, a clear space of mind, to be able to do the things that you want to do and achieve. And in order to do that, you gotta wake up earlier, you gotta get up earlier, show up earlier, because you're showing up for yourself. Believe in yourself to know that you can do the things that you want to do, you need to do, when you can do it, and when you want to do it. But you gotta prepare. Part of being prepared is being early, then on time, and well in advance, way over time. So you gotta remember that. And with that being said, I am actually at the pickup location to pick up the passengers. So that was my topic for today. Driving safely, but being on time, being earlier than on time, ahead of time. But definitely drive safely, and of course, take care, and I'll see you all soon. This video was sponsored by BET Life Services and CDL for Life. Listen, if you really enjoyed the value of this video, just click comment what you liked. And then if you really want to get more updates on more future videos, life-changing videos, then go ahead and click the subscribe button so that way you can be able to be updated on the latest videos. Now, there's a free offer that is underneath of this video. You got to click the link to get it because it may not be available. BET Life Services and CDL for Life is offering this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for you to change your life for the better by giving away bonuses that's worth hundreds of dollars or more. But the link is down below, and it's not guaranteed that it's going to be there the next time you see it. And it's only going to be available to those who take action, and it's only available for a certain amount of people. So if you want to get access to this life-changing opportunity to change your life, click down below so you can get instant access to the free bonuses down below. So go ahead and do that, and I'll see you in the next video.